Blackhawks podcast. Happy Friday. I'm Jay Zawaski with Greg Boysen standing by. Thanks for your patience. We had some technical difficulties to start the show, but we are rolling now, and we're going to get started right away because Adam Kimelman from NHL.com, he is our deputy managing editor. Do you have like a sheriff's badge for that? Like the deputy managing editor? It sounds cool. We're going to talk draft. We're going to talk combine and all that stuff. Hit the like button for us. Subscribe. Same thing on your favorite podcast app. Subscribe, follow, all that great stuff. Adam, thanks for your patience. Thanks for being with us, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is good stuff. Anything to talk about draft with you guys?
Oh, we got a lot to talk about. That's
yes.
for damn sure.
The Blackhawks certainly will be busy.
Yeah, for sure. Your mock came out the other day. You put it together, and what we're seeing here over the last little bit is a shift from a lot of people thinking the Hawks are going Demidov to now a lot of people think the Hawks are going Levshunov. Did something happen at the combine that changed that? What do you think has led to this shift in thinking for the Blackhawks at 2?
Well, I think, it's a little bit apples and oranges here. Demidov did not come to the combine. He was part of the group down in Florida the week after the combine. A lot of the Russian players through Dan Milstein's agency got together in Florida just to kind of skate and work out and meet some of the NHL teams that way in very similar to what was in Buffalo with the combine. So they had the chance to spend time with Levshunov at the combine in Buffalo. I'm sure when, the group, Kyle Davidson and his group went down to Florida, met with Demidov, I'm sure other players down there. So I don't know it was any sort of, anything that's going to change their mind. I think we're at the point of the season where you've seen these guys play. You know what kind of player, you can project what kind of player you're going to get. Levshunov and Demidov haven't played games in weeks, probably months. So nothing's changed on that front. All it is just continuing to drill down and to kind of go over the finer details of what you saw when you watched them live. And, you take a little bit from meeting them, the personality, and having not met Demidov, I can only speak to Levshunov. He's, there's a reason his nickname's the Arty Party, right? He's got a great personality, fun kid, very personable, super funny. His English obviously is a work in progress, as anybody's would, coming from where he came in Belarus. He's only been in North America for, I believe, 3 years now. So, you give him a little bit of grace there, but it's really good for a guy with that much experience speaking it. They're just doing their due diligence. And I'm sure Levshunov, Demidov, there's probably other players they're considering in that spot. I had the chance to talk to Kyle at Combine, and he said, look, we have until, we get to Las Vegas to make a decision. He said, well, obviously no before that, because everybody sort of knows who's going number 1. So they're sort of in the catbird seat as far as, the pick of everyone except Macklin Celebrini. So, they kind of can take their time and really drill into what they want, who they want, and take the player that they like.
Well, as Jay mentioned, it's kind of shifted to Levshunov here, and I will get to Demidov here, I'm sure, in a minute. But with Levshunov, we always talk about ceilings, but what is his ceiling, and also what is his floor? Like best case scenario, if the Hawks draft him, what are they getting, and what is, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but like his floor, if he doesn't hit his full potential, what do you see at the pro level?
Well, I think what you're going to get is a guy who can play in your top 4. Whether he's your number 1 or your number 4 remains to be seen. But I think he's a guy who can play on your top pair. He can move the puck. He's big and strong. He can play the physical side. He can be an offensive-minded guy. I think he was 5th among defensemen in scoring at the NCAA level as an 18-year-old. I think he was the 2nd youngest player in D1 hockey this season. So you can kind of project off of that because scoring, there's different levels, right? When you're playing in the NCAA, especially as a 17/18-year-old, everybody's 2 and 3 and 4 years older than you because a lot of these guys come in as freshmen at age 20. So as you're playing up against more physically developed competition, you really kind of get a better gauge, I think, for what the future potential is going to be. And that's not a knock on the CHL level or any other level, but I think, when you are the youngest and you're excelling when everyone else is older, I think that says more about what your potential could be. Now, how high his ceiling is, that's something that takes a lot of projection. But to me, He looks like, from when I watched him, he has the potential to be a top pair guy that you can build your back end around.
How far away are we talking? I know he's going to go back to college next year. That's the expectation, obviously. But beyond that, do we think he is the kind of guy that, kind of like Frank Nazar did this year, when his season ends at Michigan State, comes up and plays for Chicago? Do you think he's still 2 or 3 years away? What's the timeline on Levshunov?
Well, I think because of his size, at 6'2" and 205 pounds, and he's going to continue to get a little bit stronger there. He's got NHL ready size. He could step into a lineup as soon as this season if he chose to. I think, you look at the history of what, NCAA defensemen have done. Adam Fox played 4 years. Quinn Hughes played 2 years. Luke Hughes played 2 years. Cal McCarr played 2 years. And that second year seems to be the big dividing line between being somewhat ready and NHL ready. So those guys that I mentioned, they all stepped right out of an NCAA lineup, right into an NHL lineup. Lane Hudson is another one in Montreal. Played 2 years college hockey, stepped right into an NHL lineup. So if Levshunov chooses to go back for that second year, I think it's only going to make him a better, more polished, NHL-ready player for 2 years from now, when he is ready to step into a lineup, not having to spend time in the American League. His development to that point is completed. So, you do have the option, if you wanted to have him come out, split time between the NHL and the American League. So that also remains an option. But I think the best path for him probably is another season of college hockey.
Well, Ivan Demidov is a guy that we've talked about quite a bit since the draft lottery. And, it's a guy that I would love to see as kind of a dynamic duo with Connor Bedard over the years. But now all of a sudden, when it seemed 3 weeks ago, he's only going to play this final year of his contract, is going to come over. Now there seems to be a little more uncertainty. There were a lot of general managers at the Combine, which you were at, who were kind of talking. How much is that is legit concern, or how much is that is, maybe a little gamesmanship going on? A GM at 5 or 6 going, oh yeah, he's going to slide down. Don't take him so high. How much of it is legit concern, and how much of it is maybe somebody hoping he falls to them?
Well, for sure. There's always the concern with the way things are structured in Russia. I'm based in Philadelphia, so I've seen it sort of the last year with the Matvei Michkov situation, where it seems on the daily basis is he coming over today? Is he not coming over? Is it going to be another year? Is it going to be 2 more years? So there's that question mark with a lot of these players coming out of Russia, just because of the way the world is right now. So Demidov certainly fits into that equation. This is where teams have to do their homework. And they have to know, through the agent, through the player, what's the contract, what's the status, what are we looking at, and then determine, do we have the patience to wait for that player to come over? Are we willing to put in the time that it takes to get this guy into our system, if it's going to be a year, if it's going to be 2 years, if it's going to be longer? You look what Minnesota did waiting for Kirill Kaprizov to come over. I think that was 5 years after he got drafted before he was finally able to get into an NHL lineup. Are you in a position to wait that long for an elite level talent? Certainly now, Minnesota a little different. Kaprizov was a 5th round pick. If you're talking the number 2 pick in the draft, obviously I think you'd want a little bit more certainty because it's a higher risk there. So, again, this is where teams really need to drill into doing their homework and understanding, yes, he's a good player, but what are the other exigent things around him that make it, a risk factor? I mean, all these guys, this whole process is a risk factor, and all you're trying to do is how can you cut down on that risk as best you can. With a player like Demidov, it's all the external stuff that you have to, do a little extra homework on.
Well, and that, I think if I would make this joke all the time, but if his name was, Gordy Yaremchuk, he'd be number 2, number 1 without any doubt, and no one would have any fear. But there is this unknown factor, and if you're talking, again, for those that don't know, the Michkov thing was because he's under contract in Russia for, what was it, 4 years at the time of the draft, right?
3.
And that's 3 years. Okay, so that's why he fell, because of the uncertainty if he would come over at all. And even if he was going to come, it was still what we thought at the time was a few years away. Do you want to waste 2-3 years of Connor Bedard without Demidov when you can draft someone who could be ready as soon as next year? I don't know. Dan Milstein is Demidov's agent. He is North American based. You're not dealing with Russian agents. So I think whoever drafts Demidov will have a good conversation with him. We'll have some certainty. But I think there's a lot of people who are just like, Demidov's better, take Demidov. It's just not that simple.
No, and you're under the assumption that drafting Demidov, you plug and play him right into your NHL lineup. This is a guy who played junior level in Russia this season, and he dominated. And to me, he looked like a guy who was too good for the league he was in, and I would have liked to see him get tested more in the Continental Hockey League and see if how much of his game is able to replicate itself against older, more physically developed competition. Now, he'll get that next season. But to me, if you're drafting Demidov, whether his name was Ivan Demidov or Joe Smith, with that size and that credentials, I don't know if he's an NHL player anyway. So he's going to need another season of development, whether it's in Russia, in Sweden, in college, in junior, wherever. So I don't know if he's an NHL ready player anyway. So you're kind of eliminating that level of, do we or don't we? Now, him being in Russia and you not having eyes on him the way you would a player in Sudbury, a player in London, a player at the University of Michigan, so on and so forth, that kind of goes into the equation. I mentioned Michkov before. The Flyers don't have eyes on him. They aren't able to have, that one-on-one development situation with him where they can with their other prospects. So you kind of have to, you're kind of a little bit in the unknown there as far as from a development standpoint. So, I think if that's what you're basing it on, a guy we can put into our lineup tomorrow, then I think you go with the more NHL ready player. In this case, it would be, if we're going one versus the other, it's Levshunov. But if you're willing to allow the player to have the correct time of development that he needs here, there, or anywhere, then I think that there's more to consider in that point.
One of the biggest concerns when we do our show every day and we start talking about the prospects and what the team might look like, one of the biggest concerns is size. There's not a lot of big guys coming up. Bedard's on the smaller side. You look at Frank Nazar, Oliver Morris, a lot of the top forward prospects are 6 foot or under. So with that in mind, at 18, since the Hawks have now moved up 2 spots, I mean, what are the kind of prospects you feel could be available for the Hawks up front at 18 that adds talent and the coveted size that so many people are worried about?
Well, in my mock draft, I have them taking Ivan Chernishev. I'm sorry, I have them taking Sasha Boisvert, who's played in Muskegon in the United States League. And he's definitely got some size to him, for the exact kind of reasons that you stated. And I kind of wrote that in my mock draft. He's 6'2" and 183 pounds, and he plays that robust 200-foot game. And he was also able to score 36 goals playing in the United States League. So he's got some offensive skill. He's not just a checking line guy. I think he would definitely be an option. You look at someone like Ivan Chernishev, who's playing for Dynamo in the Continental Hockey League, another, big, strong kid, 6'2" and 192 pounds. And you've already been able to see what he's able to do in the Continental Hockey League. He played 34 games this season. And again, you look at the numbers and they might not pop off the page, 3 goals, 1 assist, but you have to understand teams like that, they're not going to play their younger draft eligible prospect guys with the kind of ice time that a top 6 player is going to get. So as he gets older, you'll probably see more of the skill set kind of represent itself. You look at him, Michael Brandstad-Nygaard, who's playing in Sweden, another incredibly strong forechecker guy I've really liked, just watching him, just kind of straight line player in Mora and Allsvenskan in the 2nd division in Sweden. Just a really, really strong straight ahead player, really strong below the circles. And he's already, again, able to show that against more physically developed men. So if that's what they're going to look for at 18, if that's the kind of player they're looking for that forward, there certainly are guys in that area that would fit that need.
Well, let me ask you this. Again, a lot of things change at the combine, and there was a lot of uncertainty about Kaden Lindstrom because of the back injury. It seems like, just based on the chatter coming out of the combine, that concern is a little bit, teams are starting to feel better about Kaden Lindstrom. If the Hawks walked up to the podium at 2 and selected Kaden Lindstrom, in your mind, is that a mistake, and would it surprise you?
It would neither surprise me nor would I think it would be a mistake. I think it would be a fantastic choice. I'm a huge Lindstrom fan. I mean, look, the injury is what the injury is, In speaking with his agent, myself, Mike Morial, my colleague at NHL.com, he worked with, during his recovery from the back issue, an NHL team-affiliated doctor. So that medical report has been given to Central Scouting, distributed to all 32 NHL teams, so they know the exact status of where he is, what the issue was. He came back during the Western League playoffs. We had him on our NHL Draft Class podcast. He said he's already on the ice. He's been working out. The expectation is this is a one-time occurrence. He's fully past it, and he will be 100% when next season starts. Is he ready to put into an NHL lineup? No. He needs an entire full season in Medicine Hat, playing, top-line minutes, power play, penalty kill. But, you look at what he's able to do. Scouts say they love the offensive skill set. He's got track star speed because that's what he does in addition to playing hockey. He runs track. And then he's got a real nice mean streak to him in the best way possible. If that's what you're going to add into your lineup, whether he plays in the middle or he eventually plays on the wing, kind of similar to Quentin Byfield of the Los Angeles Kings, he's a really good player. And I think, to me, I think there are guys at the Blackhawks really are considering at that number 2 spot. We talked about Demidov. We talked about Levshunov. I think Lindstrom is actually absolutely one of them. And I think Anton Saleyev, the Russian defenseman playing in Torpedo, I think he's another player that they have to consider for that spot. If Kyle Davidson walks up and calls any of those 4 names, I would not be surprised in the least.
I'm starting to talk myself into Lindstrom. I don't know. The Demidov stuff is scaring me off. There's people I trust who are talking to me, not off the record, sort of saying, the contract thing's weird. He might re-sign in Russia. I'm getting itchy about it. And I don't know, like, maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I'm whatever. Maybe it's just, I want some excitement, but I just feel like the Levshunov pick is a little bit underwhelming. I don't know. I might be wrong. But when I look at what the Hawks have, when I look at what the Hawks need, and when I look at what Kaden Lindstrom could potentially bring, he just checks every box for me, especially with the skating ability and the size and the physicality. If that's your number 2 center behind Connor Bedard for the next decade, sign me up.
Well, sure. And I think you talked about, what's the ceiling, what's the floor earlier. I think Levshunov, might be more closer to his ceiling, which is pretty high right now. So I think you're getting a fully formed NHL-ready player, whereas with Kaden Lindstrom, because of the development time that he missed, he's going to need a little bit more time. So if you're willing to have that patience, and look, I have Lindstrom going at number 4 to Columbus for a lot of the exact reasons you'd like him going to Chicago. You look at Adam Fantilli at 6'2" and 190 pounds, and then you throw Kaden Lindstrom behind him in the number 2 spot. Well, that's pretty dominant right there when you're looking to build championship teams through the middle of the ice. When you're going that kind of bookends, that's pretty impressive. Now, there are some questions about whether Lindstrom projects to be a center in the NHL or if he's a winger. Either way, there's a ton of skill there, and I think at some point he's going to be a really, really good top 6 NHL forward. Whether he plays the middle or the wing, we'll have to find out.
It's the problem with the draft lottery and the draft being so far apart is we've literally talked ourselves in and out of about 9 guys.
Yeah, that's the fun of it. But that's the fun of it.
On Monday, we want this guy. By Wednesday, we want another guy. By Friday, oh, no, I meant that guy. But the draft really does start when Kyle Davidson makes his way to the podium. That's when the fun really begins in Vegas. But you just spent a few days in Buffalo at the draft combine, and I know we, like, fans hear about it and, you see the number, but how really important outside of the teams actually getting to meet these players and get to know them a little bit and ask them all their weird, strange questions, or for their Uber ratings. How important really, like, how much can a guy move up or down a draft board by what happens at the combine?
I've talked to scouts about that, and there's really no consistent answer except that no one has really ever completely tanked or just kind of dynamically shot up the rankings because of how they were in a 20-minute combine interview, or if they go out to dinner with the club. It's all part of the stew, right? If you take one ingredient out of the stew, it's not going to taste as good. They've watched these guys for not just this season. They watched them probably going back to their age 15, age 16 season. So there's a significant book on the kind of player they were, the kind of player they are, and how their line of projection has gone. They've talked to the coaches, teammates, trainers. You mentioned the Uber rating, but that's kind of, if you think about it, when you are respectful to people you don't necessarily have to be respectful to, that tells you what kind of a person it is. Because as much as you want to bring a good player into your locker room, you want to bring a good person into your locker room. And look, we've all been around teams where they've had guys who haven't been good citizens, and it can poison your locker room really easily. And when you have good people, it can raise everybody up. So that's really the biggest part of the combine, just getting to know what kind of a person you're bringing in. So they're going to meet them throughout. You have your area scouts that meet them in season. The combine's really good for your general manager, your head scout, to kind of get to know them a little bit differently. But it's all part. It all goes into the stew, and nobody's going to either rise or fall based on what they do in one event. And it's the same as, you could take combine and plug in World Junior Championship, World Championship. No one event on one singular event on its own is going to determine any player's fate.
All right, well, this is one of my favorite topics around the draft, and maybe I ask it too much every time we have a draft expert on. But with the Hawks with the second pick in the first round at 18, as of now, could change, obviously. Is there a guy, we saw Oliver Moore fall into the Hawks' lap last year? They were trying to trade up and get him, kept trying, kept failing, and it just so happened that he fell to them anyway. Is there a player in this draft that you see that could fall out maybe a little bit unexpectedly from where they're projecting? And conversely, is there a guy who might jump up earlier than a lot of people think? And one guy, I don't want to, give you your answer, but CHGO is a guy who seems like every day that stock keeps rising and rising and rising. Is that someone you'd put in that category?
I think when you look at, so there's always tiers, right? So I think there's one guy at number 1, and then you get 2 through 5. And then that next tier, I think, runs 6 through almost 20, maybe 25. So it's hard to kind of say, could a guy rise? Could a guy fall? Because it all takes is one team, right? Like, I've seen mock drafts where, like, I have CHGO at number 12 to Philadelphia in mine. Mike Morreale, my colleague, has him at number 9 to Calgary for countless reasons. Yeah. I've seen CHGO as high as number 5. I've seen him, in the 20s. It all depends on, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? And all it takes is one team. And whether it's, a guy like Konsta Helenius, I have him going at number 10 to New Jersey. Could I see him still being on the board at number 15? Absolutely. Could I see him being gone before 10? For sure. So there's that really, pretty wide gap between 6 and 20 or 6 and even 25 that a lot of guys could fit into that spot. And they could be slotted in a lot of different places. And all it takes is one team to say, we like this guy. And I mean, look, afterwards they're all going to say, well, he was the top of our guy. He was at the top of our board when we got there. So you're going to have 32 teams. You're going to have 32 once you get past 5, you're going to have 32 very markedly different draft boards. So, one guy, and it's funny, we had Chris Morehouse, the San Jose Sharks director of amateur scouting, on, and he kind of said it the same way. He's like, we look at all of these and, we know our team and what we need. And it might not match up with the public discourse. So when Kyle Davidson is looking at what his team needs and projecting 3 and 4 and 5 years out, because that's what you're doing right now, you're expecting the guy you draft in June isn't going to be in your lineup on a regular basis and contributing until 2027 or 2028. So when you're projecting that far down the road and your personnel and what your organization has and where it's going and what it's going to need, that list could look entirely different than what my mock draft looks like, what Mike's mock draft looks like, what they do at any other media outlet. So it's really hard to say, well, this guy slipped, because 4 years from now we could say, well, geez, everybody had it wrong. Or how is this guy still there? So it's really hard to say, moving and falling at this point.
One guy that I'm a huge fan of, and he's been mentioned in the chat a couple times. We'll get one last one in here before you guy before might be there at 18. Michael Hage, Chicago Steel. I'm hoping. I would imagine the Blackhawks have had eyes on him a lot this year, playing right up the road. But if he's at 18, is he a good pick for the Hawks? I think he fits exactly what they need if he's there. But I'm worried that he's not going to be there.
Well, I have him going at number 15 to the Detroit Red Wings. So
I hate that.
Take that. Take that for. Yeah, I know. Take that for what it's worth. He's a fantastic story. He's a great young man. Had the chance to meet him at the combine. Have a story coming on him. The next. Oh goodness, we've done so many. I forget. If you stay tuned to NHL.com and follow me on social media at NHL Adam K, I'll tweet it out a bunch. But he's a young man who his last season, got sabotaged because he tore the labrum in his shoulder, missed 7 months, didn't come back until March. This season, as he's getting prepared for this season, his father passes away in a tragic accident. That's a lot. That's a lot for any kid to go through. So the fact that he had the season that he had, and he's pushed through this adversity to become the player that he's become, it's quite remarkable. The shoulder's 100%. Obviously, he showed that this season. He was 4th in the U.S. Hockey League in scoring. He's got the only real, and I hesitate to even call it a knock, but the only thing that scouts marked down on him this season was he was trying so hard to be such a leader in Chicago that he pushed the physical play a bit too far, and he got suspended, including once in their playoff series. So, I don't think that's going to be a habit for him, but I think he just sort of, that little bit of discipline, I think he needs to just bring into his game, which I 100% think he's going to handle when he gets to University of Michigan next season. But he mentioned going to Blackhawks games this season. So I'm sure, you mentioned the Chicago, the Hawks being able to see him. He spent some time watching the Hawks this season, obviously. So, look, if he's there at 18 for them, I think that'd be a fantastic pick because the size, the skill set, obviously the edge to his game, and there's a mental fortitude there that, is above what a lot of, the average 18-year-old.
Adam, we appreciate it, man. You've been super generous with your time. Everybody make sure you head over to the old Twitter machine and give Adam a follow. Really great stuff. Loved it. And I still don't know who I want the Hawks to pick. So
I don't know if the Hawks do either, if that makes you feel any better. I think
you know what? It kind of does.
Process.
It kind of does make me feel better, honestly. That's good. I don't want them to have their minds made up this soon. They shouldn't. So, Adam, we appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Anytime, guys.
All right. Thanks, that's Adam Kimelman from NHL.com. And we got some good news, everybody. It's my pleasure to announce that Smooth Sack Summer is officially upon us. That's right. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make the season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with their exclusive offer. Get $20 off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use the code HAWKS20. That's HAWKS20 at manscaped.com for 20% off. Summertime, and the trimming is easy. That Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has everything you need to prepare your body for the beach. You don't want to be the big Brillo pad walking out there on the beach with the back, like the little tuft, like over your butt crack. You don't want that. You want to be nice and trimmed, chest. And then let's say you have a good day at the beach and you meet somebody and you take them back to your place. These things help. You trim that up down there and it gives the appearance of a little extra. And we all need that, right? We all need that a little bit, especially me. What? Wait, delete that, Steven. I did not say that. Hey, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code HAWKS20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code HAWKS20 at manscaped.com. It's Smooth Sack Summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind.
How the hell am I supposed to follow that up?
Crumb?
Well,
trim your crumb.
Hold on. Wait for it. It's got to go full circle here at some point. When it comes to finding your next vehicle, make Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram your number one pick this June. Shop Chryslers, Dodges, Jeeps, and Ramses at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram in Fox Lake. During the Make This the Summer event, find the perfect vehicle and score huge savings too. For a limited time, you can lease a new 2024 Jeep Wrangler Willys. Hey, back to the Manscaped ad. For only $419 a month. Or shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. Let the amazing team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram help you land the perfect vehicle at the perfect price, because with Ray's price promise, the numbers you're hearing are the same prices you can expect to shop in store and online. That's because Ray's price promise means no price changing, no add-ons, no hitting fees, no nonsense. Since they prioritize affordability for their customers, hurry into Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram today and shop one of Chicago's largest inventories. Then drive home with more money in your pocket than you expect. So if you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you have to check out the team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, because they're the only team we recommend. Visit them on Route 12 in Fox Lake, or head on over to raycdjr.com, serving the community since 1963.
And Roy is in the chat, and Roy says, do you shave legs? I'm a cyclist, silky smooth, muscular legs, and tan. Well, there you go. See, with the Manscaped, you can shave the legs too. Anything that's got hair on it can be shaved with a Manscaped device. It's true. It's damn true.
Sure.
I know we got a super chat during Adam's visit. He was really great, by the way. Really good stuff. But I wish I knew who they should take. Daniel says $5 super chat. If the Hawks got a guarantee that Demidov would play the next full season in the KHL, would that move the needle? It's not about where he plays next year. It's where he's going to play beyond next year.
Right. He's going to play in Russia and probably KHL next year.
I just don't want him signing a 3-year deal in the KHL then.
Right. I think what moves the needle and probably makes the pick a sure thing, at least in my mind, is if he says, once this contract is done, this one season left, I am for sure, without a doubt, you have my word, I'm coming to North America next season. That probably gets them to go, okay, done.
Exactly. And the fact that his agent is North America based, I think will help them get some certainty in that regard. So we'll see. Again, like I said, if it's Demidov, if it's Levshunov, if it's Lindstrom, I'm not going to be upset. I know that Levshunov is a good pick. It just feels kind of boring for number 2. And maybe he's great. And boring is great. Duncan Keith was boring as hell, and it worked out very, very well. Right. Like there's something to be said about a guy you don't have to worry about. Yeah. Like it's fine. I'll take it. It's going to be a good pick. And like we've talked about, floor and ceiling, Levshunov feels like the safest pick. So maybe that's the way they go. I don't know. We're going to find out in exactly 15 days. No, 13 days.
2 weeks from tonight.
Yeah. 2 weeks from tonight. Right. Exactly.
Yep.
And Blackhawks Hockey 98 says, Jay, would you pick Lindstrom at first? Like first overall? No. I would take Celebrini, but I right now, I kind of want them to take Kaden Lindstrom, but I don't think they're going to.
I mean, I wouldn't be terribly upset over that. If the concerns that the back injury was just a one-time deal, he's fine. And that's what it sounds like after the combine. He checks a ton of boxes of what the Hawks need. He's big. He's dynamic. He's super fast, even for his size. I mean, that makes him even more of a unicorn. The fact that he's so big and so fast, and he's got that mean streak in him. He's the type of guy that, we're seeing what that kind of mentality has done for the Florida Panthers. You get a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, who's big and fast and can score and is willing to punch you in the face after every single whistle.
Yeah.
It's effective, and the Hawks don't have a lot of guys like that, especially that they don't have anybody that could do all of that in one. So if that's the pick, I'm not going to be angry. I'll be a little surprised, but I won't be angry with it because he could be a real special player.
The Giggities says that Corey Pronman on the Athletic podcast, they said that Lindstrom's back injury was a result of a herniated disc. And look, here's the thing. Like, I know that Lindstrom says it's fine and his agent says it's fine. I want to know from my own people that it's fine.
Right.
I'm not taking their word for it by any means, right? Like,
the player's always going to say it's fine.
Of course, you've got to know for 100% certainty before you make that pick. And like we've said, again, with the Demidov contract, with Levshunov's readiness, with Lindstrom's injury, they're going to do their due diligence. They're going to get their answers made. You know, when they walk up to make that pick at 2, they're going to have as much information as they possibly can. And that's how they should. That's exactly how they should handle things. So, I don't know. We'll see. Just 2 more weeks to talk about this. Yay. Awesome.
All right. I'm looking forward to the draft for many reasons. You know, first and foremost, going to Vegas for a few days. You know, getting out there. I haven't been to Vegas in 18 years, so I'm looking forward to getting out there. Not that we're going to have a ton of time to actually do anything, but should be a good trip. And then, of course, you know, getting the chance to network. But I'm also really excited to no longer talk about this debate. It's ran its course. We've gone full circle. We've someone breaking in.
I don't know what that was. The strangest. It sounded like a rattle behind me. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that. No. Is there a snake in your?
I'll find out. I don't know. That's what it sounded like a rattlesnake or something. I don't know what that was.
That's Zawaski, the Temple of Doom. All of a sudden.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, Vegas. I'm looking forward to the draft to be over so we can stop debating, because we've talked ourselves in and out of 3 guys already, and we're probably going to talk ourselves in and out of those guys, you know, even 2 or 3 more times.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's stop talking about it then. The other thing we're going to see at the draft, for maybe the first time, maybe the second or third time, is the new Fanatics jerseys. The draft is officially the first day of the new calendar year, so the draft picks will be wearing Fanatics jerseys. Reached out to a source today to say, hey, have you seen these? Do you like them? What do you think of them? And the reviews that I received today from said source said that they look great. The team worked with Fanatics a ton to get them right in the quality and the look. They haven't seen, like, the team's orders haven't arrived yet, but based on the samples they saw and the prototypes they saw, they're satisfied with the on-ice game-worn jerseys. To me, that's what really matters. Like, the replica jerseys that fans buy, maybe those dip in quality, and that's not good. But as long as the players are satisfied with the uniforms, you don't want to have what MLB went through this year. And apparently that was all Nike, by the way. That whole thing, all those mistakes were Nike's fault. You don't want to go through that. And it's just, you don't want another kind of laughingstock situation for the NHL. But reports from inside say the uniforms that they have seen so far are pretty good. They're very, very happy with them. So fingers crossed. And if you've listened to Chris from Aesthetics, if you go to his YouTube page and watch he did a couple of recent videos, like the final update on the Fanatics, the stuff he's heard seems to be pretty good too. Like, they're not terribly far off from the Adidas jerseys. So fingers crossed, hopeful that they look great. And I don't think the Blackhawks would let their on-ice product look like ass. I think it's something that they value very, very much. And they're not going to slack off on that. So there's a little bit of good news for you on the uniform front.
I hope so. You know, I wasn't too concerned about the switch to Fanatics at first, because I was like, they're probably going to buy a bunch of stock and they're going to buy up what Adidas has left and then take over their operation, you know, so that all the patterns and schematics, whatever you want to call it, are there. They're not starting from scratch. They're not going to redesign the hockey jersey from scratch. But then when the Major League Baseball rollout came out, all of a sudden it was like, oh no, this is bad, because those uniforms that Major League Baseball are wearing this year are like Little League replica jerseys. They're terrible. The font's too small. The numbers are too small. They just look cheap.
Yes.
They look like the baseball jerseys you would find at your local supermarket in the seasonal aisle.
Yes, you do.
They're not good. But hearing this makes me feel a little better. And hearing, apparently a lot of it is on Nike that caused a lot of these problems also makes me feel a little better. But it's Fanatics. It's the NHL. Just expect the worst, and then you can only be surprised if it's not the worst.
Yeah. I think they'll be okay. We'll see. That's fingers crossed. Are we in a break zone, Steven? Do we need to take another break here?
I mean, we should. 41 minutes in. Up to you.
Sure, let's do it. Hey, are you looking for tickets? You got Chicago and St. Louis this weekend. How's that going, by the way? I haven't checked in on that in a minute.
I think they're losing
1-0 in the 8th. Great.
That sounds about right.
Well, if you want to go and see the Northsiders and the boring town, I can say their names. It's MLB license. What am I talking about? The Cubs and Cardinals are at Wrigley Field this weekend. Go to Game Time. They are an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, and that makes getting tickets faster and easier. The prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, and potentially with every Cubs loss. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And if you're fed up with Chicago baseball, and trust me, I understand if you are, and you want to go visit some other parks in the country, and maybe you've never been to Cleveland. I know a lot of people going to Cleveland on vacation. Don't hear about that very much. Or you want to go to Wrigley North and check out Milwaukee or any of the great stadiums in Major League Baseball. You can use Game Time to view your seats right there in the app. So you're not going to have any surprises. You're not going to have any weird posts right in front of your face during the game. You're going to know exactly what you're going to get. That's what Game Time does. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Apparently, the Cardinals hit a home run in the top of the 8th inning to go up 1-0 right into the Friday 120 Club guys in the bleachers.
Awesome.
I believe Game Time also has Winter Classic tickets on the website. In case you got shut out earlier today, you can get your Winter Classic tickets already at Game Time and get the view from your seat. You know what else besides baseball season? It's grilling season.
Yes.
So get your pork. People who are active need more protein than the average American. In fact, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, Dietitians of Canada and America College of Sports Medicine, you got to find a better name for that group, dude. Recommend 1.2 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day for athletes. So this does not apply to us. Depending on training, 1 3-ounce serving of pork provides 23 grams of high-quality protein that can help active individuals build and preserve muscle. The International Society of Sports Nutrition recommends that people who are involved in a general fitness program who are interested in optimizing their health eat low-fat, high-quality sources of protein, which include lean cuts of pork. So our friend Grilling with Dad will be at the CHGO offices on June 19th, showing us how to cook up some pork and giving us some great recipes to how to cook up your Illinois pork. So check that out. That should be a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll put that all over social media. So elevate your protein game with lean pork, a powerhouse of natural goodness. Savor the flavor, savor the gains, and celebrate any occasion by joining the best pork produced by Illinois pig farmers. From your sausage and bacon at the breakfast table to the pulled pork or juicy chops hot off the grill, it's an entire season dedicated to pork and the people behind the product, paid for by the Illinois pork producers' generations of commitment.
I watched a video as you were doing your read, and it was literally hit in the basket, and Cody Delmendo reached into the basket and got the home run ball. So it was literally back. I'm sure he did. They didn't show it in the highlight, but if anyone threw it back, it's for Cody for sure. So
that's his worst nightmare. We're never going to hear the end of that.
And I just saw an update that Patrick Wisdom hit one 111 miles an hour off the bat. That was not a home run. So that's
Cool.
kind of year it's been for the Cubs. But anyway, we're talking about jerseys. We put the link for the Aesthetics Fanatics jersey in the chat. Don't go there until we're done, damn it. But go check it out. I think you'll feel better about things. And there's some news on some updates, some logo updates, some color updates, all those great things. But today we got a little preview of the Utah jerseys. And if you don't know, Utah is going without a name for this season. So they kind of came out with these prototype jerseys that they're going to wear this season. And if you're listening on the podcast, the colors are, I would call that like a Carolina blue, like Tar Heels blue with black and white. And Greg, kind of boring. Yeah. God.
They basically went to the women's league and said, "Hey, you got that stencil for those boring ass jerseys you had this year? Can we borrow that?"
Yeah, but at least they had like interesting colors. And I get, you're trying to go classic, you're trying to go timeless. The Kraken did it.
Colors.
But the Kraken have the same colors except instead of black, it's navy.
Well, no, they're more like
navy
aqua.
And sky blue.
It's more of like an aqua colorish, and they got a little red in there too. These aren't going to be the colors. It's not a guarantee this is the colors forever. It's just one season. So they probably had to call Fanatics and say, "What color jerseys do you have the most in stock in?" "Well, we have white and we've got black." "Cool, let's roll with it."
Let's throw a little blue in there too. And yeah, just so everybody knows that the name has not been decided, by the way. JD says Hockey Club was the worst possible name, so of course that's what they went with. That it's not the official name.
Just for this season.
Yeah.
And I get that. It's really hard to come up with a logo and uniforms and branding in 3 months. It's pretty much impossible if you want to do it right. So take your time, take a year to do it. Be, Utah HC. And hey, you know what? I might buy one of them and hold on to it because that might be a collector's item in 20 years from now.
Yeah.
When the Utah Swarm are winning their third Stanley Cup in 5 years, you might be able to sell that jersey online for a few $100 because they only wore it once and it's a collector's item. So it could be fun. I'm sure jersey collectors are going to grab one of those because they're it's, as I said, could be a collector's item. They're boring as hell. I don't mind the color. I always like, the Carolina blue, sky blue, powder blue in some sort of incarnation. I wish it was the other way around, where like the blue was the main color, and then maybe the lettering was in white and black, not a black jersey. So maybe flip that. That would maybe look a little cooler. But it's short term. It's short notice. Of course it's going to be boring. They're not going to come up with anything great. So you know what? If they have a good season, if they go out, they're expected to be players this offseason and free agency, trade market. They've got some young players coming up. They've got a ton of salary cap. They're going to want to be good for their first year in Utah. They saw what a good team does to the interest in Vegas. I'm not going to say they're going to be that good, but nobody's going to care about the jersey if that team's in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah. I saw today in 32 Thoughts, Jeff Merrick kind of pushing for Utah to trade for Patrick Laine. We talked about that on yesterday's show. If you missed it, check it out. He wants to trade out of Columbus. And like they said in 32 Thoughts, and like we said yesterday, you don't know, like there's not a lot of teams that can take on that contract. They don't have a ton of cap space unless, you're going to ask Columbus to throw in a little sweetener or eat half the deal. So there's a couple teams like the Hawks and the Sharks and the Utah HC that have the cap space and the reason to bring in a guy like that. So
could you imagine being Patrick Laine, being this world-class level talent? You're the second pick overall in the draft after Austin Matthews. And then you have to go play your career in Winnipeg, Columbus, and Utah. Like, who did this guy piss off?
That's rough. That is truly rough.
A nice big city like Chicago. We as I said, we discussed it yesterday. But man, if the Hawks jump in on that and get him for very little because they can take on the whole contract, do it. Do it. The money doesn't mean squat right now, and you need $11 million addition just to get to the floor. And his timeline is perfect. 2 years, then you don't have to. You can move on or maybe renegotiate because he's still on the younger side. He's only 26, so it's not like it's not like he's 35. He's not Jake Gensel at 30. It's a very low risk, high reward move.
Did you read Laz and Powers did they wrote this yesterday, what does a perfect offseason look like for the Hawks? And they both basically agreed, just go get Jake Gensel, trade for his rights, and sign him long term.
Of course.
So there's just a lot of smoke there, man. I don't know. It's and I'm sure that those two guys, no one's more plugged in than Scott. That's fact. But maybe they're just picking up on the stuff that Friedman has said and LeBron has said, and now they're just kind of saying, well, kind of doing what we're doing, saying there must be something there. But that name and the Hawks are not going away. It's very, very interesting. So we'll see. We should talk about the Cup Final, by the way, because next time we're on, it might be over.
Probably. Really starting to look like it. So much for that Game 6 watch party. I mean, maybe we could talk to the people at Salerno's and we can go watch Game 6 of the 2010 Cup Final there. That Friday night.
Let's see. I got my. Here we go. I got my DVDs. I got my 17 seconds. I got the.
There you go.
What's the 2015? Yeah, I got them. I got all these. We can do it. Just put on throw some Blu-rays on.
There you go. That'll work. I'm sure they got a Blu-ray player somewhere there.
I think so.
Yeah, the Oilers. I picked them to win basically because I was sticking with my pick from the beginning of the year and the beginning of the playoffs. It worked last round against Dallas, even though I didn't necessarily believe it would happen. Even though I picked the Oilers, I couldn't say that I was willing to bet a major amount of money that they were going to win. But I didn't expect it to be this lopsided. And, people are going to, rag on Stuart Skinner. People are going to,
that one was tough.
Oh, yeah, one was tough. But you've scored 4 goals in 3 games.
Yeah.
That's not beating anybody.
Nope.
Regardless of what
maybe the Hawks
is doing, maybe. Regardless what your goalie is doing or not doing, 4 goals in 3 games is not getting the job of it. And 3 of those came in 1 game. You had 1 goal in the first 2 games of this series. You're not beating anybody.
And the other thing too, though, is they're not getting goalied. But Bobrovsky's playing awesome. He's doing his job. He's making big saves, but you can't. This is not going to be a series where the Oilers look back and say, you know what, we did our best, but the goalie was just better than us. That's not the case. They're just getting. Florida's just a juggernaut, man. Edmonton Stars can't get anything going. It's one and done. McDavid's been quiet. It's just Draisaitl's been quiet. Hyman's been quiet. Florida is just too good. They're too deep. They've got nothing to lose. They've got no pressure on them right now. All the pressure's on the Oilers. Florida is in a great position right now to sweep the series, or my favorite term, the gentleman sweep, beat them in 5. I hope it gets to 6 because I really want to go to Salerno's, try the Wings, because they're awesome. But I can go to Salerno's and not watch hockey.
Oh, true. I mean,
yeah, right.
You don't have to.
We can go to Salerno's either way.
Me into it. Yeah, we're gonna have a pizza party one way or the other, whether there's a game on or not. I'm sure there is a game of something we could put on. We can watch the
cricket
Cubs
or lacrosse or something.
Yeah, we could watch the Cubs lose 1-0, or the White Sox lose 30-0. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But
there you go.
Yeah, I mean the Oilers. You could argue they got goalied in Game 1. They were the better team in that game.
Yeah.
Game two, they 10, 12 shots on goal. They didn't produce a lot. They were the better team for a lot of last night. They had a really good first period and gave up the goal late in the first, but then, Warren Fogle, who got kicked out of Game 2, redeemed himself, getting that breakaway goal. And when they got that goal, I was like, okay, maybe that's going to take a little pressure off of them. Maybe that's going to get things rolling. And then, even when Florida went up 2-1, the Oilers were still swarming. And then all of a sudden it's 2-1 to 4-1 in the blink of an eye. But to the Oilers' credit, they came out in that third period and scored 2 more goals. Like, they didn't just roll over and die. They made it interesting. So they're not going to, they're not just going to come out Saturday night, tomorrow night for Game 4 and just go through the motions and lose 7-0. You don't think so. But the way the Panthers are, they may force them into that. But the Panthers are business as usual. Just go out and do our thing. If we lose a game, so what? We're going to come out the next game and do the same thing again and probably win. Just like in the first round when they lost Game 5 to Boston and they were interviewing Paul Maurice, and he wasn't worried for a second because he knew, no, Game 6, we're going to win this. It's done. They learned so much from last season on what it takes to win that, they've incorporated into this year. They learned lessons from starting off poorly last year and having to basically play playoff hockey for 4 months. And then by the time they got to the Cup Final, they were out of gas. And then some guys were hurt too. They learned this year, hey, let's get off to a good start so we don't have to sweat this thing out and we can rest players down the stretch and we can conserve energy. And then they get to the playoffs and it's that nothing phases them ever. They're just a well-oiled machine. And I'll eat a lot of crow on this one. When they fired Andrew Burnett and hired Paul Maurice, I rolled my eyes and said, you're another retread, the good old boy network, Paul Maurice, blah, blah, blah. And, man, he has been awesome since he's been down there.
Just keeping them loose. I mean, that's when you look a lot of what John Cooper did in Tampa. I remember in 2015, during the Cup Final, I was at a Cubs game, and I looked over, and John Cooper was there. I'm like, how is this guy at a Cubs game? He was just chilling. He had his lightning 3/4 zip, and people were yelling at him. He's like, hey, how's it going? Just totally relaxed. I mean, they did lose the series if we all remember correctly, but 2015. But having a guy that is not phased and not panicked goes a long way. And I think you saw the same thing with Q when he was here, and I'm sure all the great coaches of all time can kind of feel that way. By the way, did you see Knobloch's interview with Emily Kaplan during the game? He was just so disinterested, and she's asking good questions, and he basically just goes, I don't know. We're just playing hockey. He's just completely distracted by obviously the game.
I'm not a fan of those in-game coaches interviews. I think some guys are very cordial with it, but you got a guy like Knobloch. This is his first year. He's never. He's probably going, lady, we're getting our teeth kicked in right now. Can you get this microphone out of my face, please? I'm not a fan of those. I'd rather have you do that at the start of a period or at the end of the period. But yeah, he also said at the end of the game, I was hey, we know how to beat this team. Do you? I don't think they've beaten the Florida Panthers since 2022. I saw the other day. So I don't think you know how to beat this team.
Well, they're due. I
Sure.
don't know. Get us to 6 games. We want to go to Salerno's, damn it. If there is a game 6, we will be at Salerno's on Grand watching a game. So let's hope it gets there just for our sake. But other than that, we're going to wrap things up. Thanks for everybody's patience as the show got off to a slow start technically. But thanks to Adam Kimelman for coming on the show today. He was
awesome
excellent.
Stuff.
Mario's back Monday, so we're back at full strength. It should be a lot of fun and lots of news. So we start ramping up as the Cup Final ends. You'll start seeing some transactions happening. If the Hawks are going to make a trade pre-draft by Monday, they're going to have 12 days to do it. So look for business to pick up big time.
If anybody's trading for Martin Necas, it's going to be before July 1st, is it not?
You would think so.
Because then they have to qualify him on offer at that point. So yeah, you're going to see some stuff happening shortly after this series is over.
Yes, and a little bit of long-term news. We are going to talk to the new Blackhawks broadcast voice on July 2nd at 2:30. Rick Ball will join the show. So put it in your calendar. July 2nd, the day after free agency, a couple days after the draft. We'll talk to Rick Ball. We're looking forward to that. But again, next week.
Maybe we can get Panger to call it on that. Maybe get Panger to call in on that show. They just have them call some plays so they can give us a test run of what it's going to sound like this year.
That'd be fun. And speaking of that, you see Panger go after Jeff Agress yesterday on Twitter.
That doesn't surprise me. He didn't like that article at all, and then Agress pretty much wrote the article 3 separate times saying the same thing. And if there's one thing I have learned over the past couple of weeks, Darren Pang is the easiest guy to get a hold of. He will answer his cell phone, and if he's in the middle of a golf round when you call, he will call you back. All you have to do is call him and say, hey, Darren, I heard this. Is this true? What do you think? And didn't happen. So,
I mean, even if you stand by your story, right? And Jeff Agris, if you missed it, Jeff Agris of the Sun-Times, who covers a lot of media here, wrote a good story about me. It's right over my shoulder there. That's a Jeff Agris story. Even if he stands by the report he got, I think you at least owe it to Panger and Vosters to say, hey, I reached out and there was no comment, or here's what they said. I still stand by what I report. But to not ask is Pang is very easy to find. He is an easy guy to find and reach, as you said. So anyway, check it out on your own, draw your own conclusions.
He has called my cell phone numerous times over the past couple of weeks. So if he's willing to call me back, he's willing to call anybody back.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap things up. Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great week. We'll talk to you on Monday at 2:30. Again, back to full strength with Mario. Hoping for a lot of NHL and Hawks news next week. Thanks for joining us on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.